Mr. Ajulo, we are experiencing another building collapse in Lagos, Nigeria. Well, in your professional opinion, why do we have such a high prevalence of such incidents, especially in Lagos?
Good evening, Nigerian. I think the reason for the prevalence of a building collapse in Nigeria, especially Lagos, is it's not so many, just a few number of reasons that that the government needs to do something about. I mean, government can fix this problem. The government wants to fix it. The first reason is faulty design. Faulty design is the first big reason why we have building collapse in Lagos. The second reason is greed. What do I mean by greed? When developers have a project, sometimes they approach the government agencies with an initial design. Say, for instance, they say they are building a 10-story building. However, when they get approval and they begin to sell this unit and they find out that there's so much sales, then they move it to 15 stories from 10 stories, whereas the initial design done by the professional was for 10, was for 10 stories. Now they are moving it to 15 stories. When you have such situations, you find out that the initial design has been abused. Therefore, you would have the chances of, building collapse. So the big issue here is developers and builders not following the professional advice of consultants. When your architect or your structural consultant says that we have designed this building for 10 floors, don't turn it to 20 floors, don't turn it to 18 floors. This is a key reason why we have a lot of building collapse. And because we live in a country where people can get approval for anything when they do, when they follow the back door. I mean, oftentimes, it is impossible to do these designs, to do these constructions without going back to the Lagos State government to get approval, And then you find out, how do these people get approval for a building that was initially designed for 10 stories? How do they get approval to turn it to 20 stories? These are the questions we need to begin to ask, the responsible agencies within the Lagos State government. When the Lagos State government begins to ask this question and begin to sanction the appropriate agencies who give approval for this kind of building, then we'll begin to have sanity in the system. And the consultant also, when you do a design and the contractor or developer is abusing the design, you must write a letter, to extricate yourself from such projects. Write a letter of disclaimer that your professional advice are no longer being followed. When we have this situation, when we have consultants doing this, then we'll have a lower incidence of building collapse, because oftentimes people feel that building collapse is just because of substandard building material. If you have a good consultant, you should not have substandard reinforcement on site, because they would have made sure that the reinforcements supplied to you on site are the right caliber of reinforcement and all that. So if we wait for Lagos State government to do the investigation, on the current building collapse, I mean, it's unfortunate, lives have been lost, but it wouldn't be far from the truth after the investigation if we find out that the initial design wasn't stick to. You find out that probably they requested for 15 stories and they are going 21 stories. It won't be farther from the truth by the time the Lagos State government is done with its investigation.
All right, now, Ajulo, you've talked about extrication and manipulation, but then don't you think some sort of continuous monitoring should have surfaced in this particular issue? Not only in this particular issue, every other building that has been constructed in Lagos, or should we say in Nigeria, don't you think there should be some sort of continuous monitoring of these sites to ensure compliance by the builders and the architects, so to speak, so that we can avoid such situations?
The problem is not monitoring. I mean, I am a site person, I'm a construction person, and I can tell you that the Lagos State government officials are always on all sites. They are always going around. So the problem is not that they do not know where these sites are. The problem is not like they are not monitoring this site. The problem is that the laws are not being adhered to. What is the use of a law that is not being adhered to when some party arrangements are being made? So the issue is not whether the laws are not in place. The issue is not whether the agencies are not going around. But are they going around with the intention to enforce, or are they going around with the intention to enrich their private pockets? How did this man get permission to build 21-story building, I mean, we don't know all the facts yet, but you may be surprised to find out that the initial permission he got was not for 21-story building. It might be for 12-story building. Say, for instance, it was for 12-story building. How did he get permission to build a 21-story building on a 12-story building initial design without a reassessment and a reevaluation? These are questions that the Lagos State government needs to ask itself, before we even go further. So it's not a problem of monitoring, it's a problem of sincere intention and an enforcement of the law.
All right, so aside enforcement of the law, what other thing do you think can be done? Because I think more emphasis should be on prevention than, like they say in Nigeria, prevention rather than cure. Don't you think there are some drastic steps we can take to prevent such situation? And if they do happen, how do we nip it in the bud?
The first step is that the law must work. That is the prevention. You see, when we live in a society where people know that when they break the law gets applied. When the law is blind to your connection, to your pedigree in the society, to your caliber in the society, then everybody knows that, look, I cannot say because of my connection in Alausa, I will change a 12-story building design to a 21-story building design. I cannot say that. So the first thing that needs to be done is that the law needs to work. The second thing that needs to be done is that there needs to be more awareness. I mean, because of the foreign exchange crisis going on in the country today, you have a lot of substandard construction materials going about, especially reinforcement steel, and these are very critical to building high-rise, So you want to be sure that you have bought the right reinforcement. So there needs to be continuous awareness, continuous sensitization on the danger, of building collapse. I mean, it's pound foolish penny wise, or to invest this much money and then you have the building collapsing. I mean, it doesn't just add up economically. I mean, why don't you do the right thing? I'm just trying to put myself in the situation of the contractor now or the developer who owns this project. I mean, he's probably invested a lot of money.
Right.
But if he has done the right thing, he would not have had to lose all the money he has invested now, So it's very pertinent that that everybody, behaves responsibly, take responsibility for their projects. You lose first, and then you cause other people loss of life. From the news now, we heard that 3 people are dead already. You cause other people loss of life when you take this kind of decisions based on economic reasons alone. So sensitization is key. Secondly, proper implementation of the law is very key. And then taking responsibility is another factor that needs to be done to prevent this kind of issues in the future.
Thank you so much, Anthony Ajulo, for joining us on the news.